Pleased to say the Deputy Prime Minister is with us now. Mr Raab, good morning to you. You've been in your constituency at the weekend. 2,743 majority. How angry are people?
Look, I think there is some frustration and people feel it's there's an issue of double standards. I have to say I was out canvassing 3 times and I didn't get it raised a lot with me. What people care about is that the government is focused on their issues and making their lives better. And the vaccine rollout, we're the most boosted in Europe. We're the most tested in Europe. We've got the most antivirals in Europe in terms of the vaccine programme. And as a result, we've come out of lockdown. The economy is growing, jobs are up, wages are up, economic growth is up. And it's really important that we deal with these allegations and these claims. That's what the Sue Gray inquiry is for. But actually, that allows us to focus on what people really care about. And frankly, that's the overwhelming feedback that I've had, and I think most people across the country.
So nobody on the doorstep has brought up Boris Johnson's behaviour?
Oh, it gets brought up. But
what do they say?
What I think the frustration is they want to see the government focusing on their priorities.
What do they say about Boris Johnson's behaviour?
Well, you get mixed views, but I have to say it didn't get raised a lot with me.
No, but when it was, what did they say?
Well, I think people want to know that we're focused, they want to know that there's not double standards, and they want to know that we're focused on their priorities, which is why, where we've got to now, we're the most boosted country in Europe, we're out of the lockdown measures, the economy is growing far faster than almost all of our major economic comparators, and we're talking about the issues that matter to people. That's why I'm talking about crime fighting today.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that.
But I think that's the issue.
So they are worried about double standards then, some of your constituents?
Look, I think ever since I became an MP in 2010, and you remember the expenses scandal, I think, of course, any perception of double standards is really serious. We understand that frustration. That's precisely why Sue Gray will look at all of these issues.
Sue Gray, we know.
And there'll be full transparency and accountability for that.
OK. Have you spoken about the concerns of your constituents to the Prime Minister?
Well, look, I think he's well aware of the frustration. He expressed it, he articulated it, he apologised for it with contrition in the House of Commons.
If it transpires that he lied to Parliament, should he step down?
Look,
you're going to say Sue Gray, I know, but the question remains, if a Prime Minister lies to Parliament, should they step down?
Look, I'm not going to speculate on hypothetical questions.
Speculating.
I'm confident that he's been is straightforward with the House of Commons. But of course, as you rightly say, Sue Gray will look at all the various different bits of snippets and claims and assertions that have been made.
OK, well, let's just clarify what he actually said to PMQs, or to the House via PMQs last week.
When I went into that garden just after 6 on the 20th of May 2020 to thank groups of staff before going back into my office 25 minutes later to continue working, I believed implicitly that this was a work event.
Dominic Cummings says he's lying.
Well, look, the Prime Minister has been very clear, as you heard in the House of Commons, you know, that is the position. And of course, Sue Gray will be able to test
the name 4 times.
Well,
there's a bit of a running joke about how many times ministers can say Sue Gray.
Well,
she's the most famous woman in Britain.
I think if you set up an investigation to look at something which people are saying, and I accept is as serious as this, it's important to respect the integrity of it. So that's why we refer to it.
And you said that's his position, but this is what Dominic Cummings says is the truth. I said to the PM something like, Martin's invited the building to a drinks party. This is what I'm talking about. You've got to get a grip on this madhouse. The PM waved it aside. He went on to say, not only me, but other eyewitnesses who discussed this at the time would swear under oath that this is what happened. He says the Prime Minister's lying.
Look, the PM's been very clear that that's not true or accurate, and
he's telling the truth. So Dominic Cummings is lying.
Forgive me if I don't get drawn in to the soap opera of what one or other claim has been made. That's not
really
the position.
A soap opera,
the PM,
is it,
I think
it's about whether the Prime Minister has lied to the nation and his colleagues.
I've been very clear that I think it's a serious issue, which is why we've got the independent investigation. What I'm not going to do is preempt or get into Sue Gray.
Yes, indeed.
Well done. But we're not. I'm not going to get into commenting on every little snippet that makes its way into the papers, precisely because, as you asked me, I think what people want us really focused on. Yes, that's important. It needs to be looked at. Proper transparency. the things that matter in their daily lives, which is coming out this pandemic, the economic measures that we've taken to save 15 million jobs through the course of the pandemic, getting ourselves back on the front foot, wages are rising, and the crime-fighting agenda, which is we're putting forward with doubling the magistrates' sentencing.
Come back to that. Meantime, this is what's happening in places like Derbyshire at constituency offices. They're daubing lies like that, written all over the MP's front door, if you will. So the message is not getting across about what you're saying.
Well, I don't think you can judge mainstream opinion in this country by those who would act and take a can of spray paint and daub graffiti on someone's office. And I don't think that's responsible behaviour.
OK, what about Maria Corfield then? She's the health minister. She wrote this on her website. It's clear that there was a culture inside Number 10 where even if rules were not technically broken, the spirit of the rules were, and this is completely unacceptable. So if you put aside what happened in Derbyshire, this is what a minister's saying.
Well, but I think actually the Prime Minister's been very clear that things happen that shouldn't have done. He's apologised for that, and Sue Gray is looking at all of the details so we can have a proper accounting of it.
Yeah, OK. We've also heard from other ministers as well. They've underlined in more detail that basically this is death by 1,000 cuts. And it's either now or when Sue Gray's report comes out.
Oh, sorry, what is death by 1,000 cuts and what is now when Sue Gray's report comes out?
I'm glad you asked me. I'll go into it in more detail. We've just been hearing from what Dominic Cummings said, what we've seen written on the walls, what the Prime Minister said at the time, and in detail what the Health Minister said as well. All of these things are building up to saying the Prime Minister is not trustworthy.
Loads of frenetic commentary. That's why you have Sue Gray looking at this, so you can have a proper investigation into the facts and then full transparency and the accountability that comes with it.
And if she finds that the Prime Minister misled Parliament, what happens then?
Look, I'm not going to speculate on hypothetical scenarios. What I am going to do is recognise the importance and the public frustration with any perception and any reality of double standards and let Sue Gray do her job. That's the right thing to do.
OK, so hypothetical is the other word that comes up a lot with Sue Gray. I suppose we'll know by the end of next week and then see what happens then.
Exactly.
But you were running the country for 2 weeks, weren't you, when the Prime Minister was poorly? Were you at all aware of a drinking culture?
No. I mean, the thing I would say is that people working extremely long hours, and so it doesn't surprise me if people, as you see in other walks of life, had a glass of wine or beer at the end of a very long week. But I'll tell you,
against the rules?
I'll tell you, not in a work setting, but I'll tell you something, Kay, because I think it's important, and I can only talk to what I know and what I see, and no one is credibly. I mean, there was the speculation that the 20th of May party was held in my honour to thank me. It was just ridiculous.
Was it?
No, of course not. Ridiculous.
So it was a party on the 20th
no, exactly.
of May, then? You referred to it as the 20th of May party?
This is the claim that was made, and it was
That's not what you just said.
It was nonsense. I wasn't invited, and I didn't attend. So what I can tell, and so I don't think anyone is accusing me of that. What I can tell you from what I saw, precisely because I did spend a sustained period, is Number 10, particularly during that period when the PM was unwell and in hospital, but also throughout the pandemic, has been working phenomenally hard under grueling conditions.
And I
do not personally, from my own experience, recognise the caricature that they were all partying. This was an incredibly serious and difficult and dedicated team.
They had a DJ in the basement. They got on Will's swing and broke it. They took a suitcase.
So, okay, I'm just telling you what I saw and my experience.
Yeah, but you can't say that they weren't taking advantage, a lot of the people in Downing Street, given that, you know, we've had several eyewitnesses who illustrated what happened.
So, okay, all I'm telling you is what I saw. You asked me for my personal experience, and what I'm telling you is I think that the conditions in a crucible-like context, in a pandemic that the likes of which we've never seen before, all of my exposure, direct and personal, was to an incredibly hard-working team.
What did you make of the pictures that we've seen?
Look, I feel as frustrated as anyone else. I think double standards is toxic. I get all of that. I get the frustration.
How Her Majesty feels about what was happening in Downing Street the day before her
well,
husband's funeral.
Number 10 is apologised.
Yeah, but I wonder what you think.
Look, I think it was right to apologise for it. Of course, I want to see compliant. I'm a lawyer by heart. I want to see the rules complied with. I also recognise that as lawmakers, the government has got to take a lead, show it is acting to the highest standards. Otherwise, how can we expect others to follow it? I get all of that.
Yeah, but if I may, Deputy Prime Minister, you're picking and choosing about what you believe and what you don't believe. You know, some parties did go ahead the day before the funeral of the Duke of Edinburgh, but the one on the 20th of May wasn't a party.
No, the question.
So we have to wait for Sue Gray.
Yes, but you were asking me what I'd seen. You, in fact, perfectly fair. You say I spent a lot of time in Number 10 during the period where the PM was unwell and after in my capacity as First Secretary and since, and Foreign Secretary at the time. And all I'm telling you is
You've never seen this fridge that they're talking about?
No, I never saw the fridge. I mean, and all I'm saying is, in fairness, I think there's something of a caricature that is being depicted against the incredibly professional, dedicated, hard work that I saw. And I can only vouch, UK, in good conscience about what I saw.
It sounds like they're all going to be thrown under the bus. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that, whether it's got 350 million quid written on the side of it or not. Yes, we will, apparently. Tell me about the courts.
Look, we've got this backlog in the Crown Courts in particular. We've started to get the backlog down in the Magistrates' Court. Since the peak in June, we've got the Crown Court backlog, which hears the most serious cases and was affected by the social distancing rules, particularly jury trials. That backlog is down by 2,000. We've secured £1 billion to get the courts back up and running over the next 3 years and get the backlog down. One of the additional things we're doing is doubling the sentencing powers of magistrates from 6 months to 12 months. And what that will do is get more cases going through the courts. We will see criminals brought to book, victims having to wait less time, and a further estimated 1,700 of those cases in the backlogged Crown Courts reduced. So this is, I think, the right thing to do, and I hope everyone will support it. Well,
except the Criminal Bar Association, who says negligible impact.
Well, it will have an impact on top of the 2,000 that we've reduced the backlog. So the backlog in June at the peak was around 61,000. It's now down to 59,000. This will take 1,700 off. But I tell you what, we need to work together as a team. The lawyers are incredibly important. They've done a great job through the pandemic. The judiciary and the court service have. But I have to say, the Criminal Bar Association has been threatening strike action. The one thing that will hold back our recovery from this pandemic will be an irresponsible and, I think, unwarranted industrial action by criminal barristers. We are out of time, but indulge me, if you would, with your expertise when you were Foreign Secretary. We're being told that we're days away in Ukraine. Days away from what? I'm not sure what you're... Well, I'm referring to the fact that the Ukraine and Russia, more than 100,000 troops are on the Russian border. We're being told we're days away. I had the Ukrainian ambassador sat there just last week, and he was concerned about World War III and sending people back in body bags. Well, look, we're absolutely clear. Ukraine, along with our partners and allies, we support Ukraine's territorial integrity, its right to defend itself. And we've been very clear to Moscow that any invasion will be met with sanctions and an economic and financial response by the international community. And it's important that Russia de-escalates and dials down its rhetoric and its aggressive behaviour. You're always honest and open. Thank you very much for joining us. It's going to be an interesting week next week, isn't it? Always is. There's a report apparently coming out. I can't remember the name. Yeah, exactly. It's good to talk to you, as always. Thank you to Deputy Prime Minister.